What if you could design a business that gave you the income that you wanted and allowed you the freedom to work when you wanted? Well, that is a Select consultancy, and today on the show, I want to show you what are the steps you need to put in place to have the freedom to work when you want, with whoever you want, anywhere in the world. Hi, my name's Russell Pearson. For the last 30 years, I've been working with consultants, very much like you, to help them grow their consultancies. And it's not just about building a big business, and it certainly hasn't been that way for some time. After COVID, we do understand the freedoms that we probably once took for granted are so much more valuable to us now. And so designing a business that enables us those freedoms to work when we want, with whomever we want, anywhere in the world, gives us the flexibility to have a professional lifestyle that we absolutely love. So I'd like to show you how I've done that and how you can do the same thing as well. So I want to take you back to 19 years ago when I first had the idea to start my business. Now, the business was called Crimson Fox, and for those who are wondering, what does Crimson Fox mean? Well, Russell, that's my name, means redhead or fox-like. And so I combined those two things, and instead of calling it Red Fox, I went one step further and called it Crimson Fox, and my business was born. Now, at the time, it was a creative agency, and while we did absolutely advise people on how to grow their businesses, we did a lot of the production work. So that's production work on marketing campaigns and sales activities, brochures, and all those sort of things that go as additions to the process of acquiring clients. And so we were very good at that. We were very good at helping people acquire those clients. And so the business grew. And it did grow. I moved from a home office into a small little cubicle inside a bigger offices, which was like a shared office space. I think I had a 10 by 10 square meter office that didn't even have a window to the outside world. I had a window just to the hallway, so I felt very shut in. But we grew again, and I got my first employee. The employee and me were both in that 10 square space with two little desks. And once I went to put on my second employee, we had to grow. And so I went to a 20 square space, and then we made it into a 30 square space, and eventually I opened my own office. Now, at that point in time, things were very busy. I was just sort of running ahead with this idea that I needed to grow. I had no real reason why I needed to grow. In fact, it was kind of back to that idea of whether it's the American dream or the Australian dream, very, very similar. I think the difference between the Australian dream and the American dream is that you don't need a white picket fence for the Australian dream. But the idea was that I would have the wife, the children, the house, the business, the income, and have the car and all those sort of things. And I kind of chased that for the lack of having a real dream of my own. Now, when I started that business, I think I was 28. And things have changed since then. And in fact, a hell of a lot of things have changed since those. But about the age of 38, so I'm running along for 10 years growing this business. And about the age of 38, something went wrong. But when it went wrong, I had 12 staff inside a studio doing all the things and running with hundreds of different clients. And the business was successful by everyone else's account. But I was flat out busy. And so I ended up in hospital. Now, I ended up in hospital because of something that happened with my gut, and I ended up having a bowel resection, which means a certain part of my stomach was my bowel was taken out at the age of 38. And so that instantly knocked me on the head and reminded me that I was not a superhuman. Up until that point, I thought all teenagers through to 20-year-olds through to 30-year-olds that I was going to live forever and that I was very human. And so it gave me a wake-up call. But what was interesting, I've really thought about this over time, it wasn't the wake-up call of the incident that actually caused me to change what I was doing. It was the time that I had to spend in hospital recovering that forced me to stop. I hadn't stopped for 10 years. I'd just been running, doing whatever I could to get new clients, to get more staff, to service those clients, to build, to grow. And I hadn't actually taken stock of, have I changed in the last 10 years? Am I still happy with what's going on? Do I enjoy this process? And those weeks in hospital really gave me time to reflect. And what I reflected on was I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with the situation. I had many clients that I didn't enjoy working with because they were shouting at staff. They were yelling at us about timeframes. They were pushing, pushing, pushing. And it's interesting the change between like when I started 30 years ago to even 18 years ago. Back 30 years ago, we had the internet, but we weren't using it. So we didn't even have email when I first started in business in general. And the acceleration of just having email and then other people getting email too, it was kind of like the first telephone. You had no one to call. But when people started to get emails, you could actually send documents to them and back again near instantly rather than having to courier things around. Now, when the emails came in, everything sped up. And so clients' expectations sped up, which means the speed of your work had to speed up, right? And at the time, I was letting clients control my situation. I was like, yes, whatever needed to happen would happen. The client was always right. It was that sort of concept that I had in my head. And this wake up call of this couple of weeks in hospital, ended up being multiple weeks in hospital, really enabled me to stop and say, what do I enjoy? What don't I enjoy? What needs to change? And so a bunch of things needed to change. Now, the big part was I was really low on energy. I was low energy. I'm not going to go there, but I was really low energy. And what I mean by that is that I was spending all my energy with team members, as in my staff. I was spending my energy on clients. By the time I got home, I had no energy for my family. And that caused all sorts of issues around that same time as well. So what needed to change was, number one, I needed more energy in my business. And I'd already started the consulting. We'd already been consulting for some time. And the other side that I'd noticed is that 50% of the entire turnover of the business actually had come from consulting, and I was the only one doing it, which means I had me doing strategy, consulting, and actually having high leverage, high income returns on the work that I was doing, versus the production side of the business, which had 10 to 12 staff, flexibly, depending on what we needed at any one time, running really fast just to break even. And so that was a huge change that needed to happen as well. I needed to start focusing on high value, high return activities so I could get some of that time back. So I needed energy back. I needed time back. And I really wanted to get a sense of, number one, where I was going with this business and what did it mean for me as a human, putting all this effort into growing a business. Why was I doing that? Why wouldn't I just go back and get a job if I just wanted to work a certain amount of hours and make a certain amount of income? Well, I wanted the freedom, and I investigated that. What was it about freedom? Because freedom's kind of intangible. What was it about freedom that I wanted? And what I wanted specifically was the freedom to choose my own hours, the freedom to be able to work where I wanted in the world, so that flexibility of being anywhere in the world. And also the flexibility of choosing the clients. So being able to select which clients I work with without having to take everybody because I had all these mouths to feed with my team and my staff. And so things changed, and I want to show you how that happened. So some big changes happened. I ended up selling the production side of the business. I held on to the consulting side of the business, which meant that all my team either went to get other jobs or they went across to the new business and they joined forces there. We kind of merged Crimson Fox in with another business with a colleague of mine who we were very friendly with, and that worked quite well. Okay, so they were able to service those clients. The clients were able to continue to be looked after. I was able to continue with the ones that I was consulting to, and it was a fair exchange of funds. On the other side, I've now got myself. I don't have a team, which means I'm having to do things again myself. I have a small amount of clients, but I have a high income, which means suddenly I'm getting much more profit. Right? So the consulting business, actually taking it from a consulting plus service to consulting only business, was a really smart change, and it created really high profits. So I had the money, and that's good to have the money. And interestingly enough, what I didn't have yet was probably enough choices. I didn't feel like I had enough control. I didn't feel like I had the freedom to work wherever I wanted. Now, I'm not really a traveling person. I don't want to live all these different places around the world. I love Melbourne, Australia. I just wanted to be able to say, well, I could work here, or I could work at a cafe, or I could work at the premises of my client, or I could work out, in the bush, right? So out in the forest and stuff, which I love doing. I love spending time out in the forest. And so how could I do that? How would it enable me to do that? Well, number one, I had to stop working hand to mouth. So I'd get a client, I'd feed myself as far as like getting income, and then, you'd get really busy, and then like a client would finish a project and suddenly you'd have nothing, and then suddenly you're starving again, and you'll just take whatever comes because you're at the bottom of this roller coaster, and the roller coaster ride goes like that. Most people experience that at some time. And so what did I need to do? Well, I needed to create client flow. I had cash flow, but I needed client flow, and I needed it to be regular, and I needed it to be more than I needed, which means I had to have higher demand on what I could provide versus the supply that I could give, so the amount of time that I wanted to give. That enabled me to have choices. Now, I want you to all understand, you can choose anything you want at any time. You're not trapped. You're not locked into a position. You can choose. There may be consequences. There may be consequences of every decision you make. There may be very positive consequences of the decisions you make. But you can change and you can choose to do these at any one time. But even when I was going through this process, I still was stuck in this idea of I need to still be working 5 days a week. Now I don't do that. Now, majority of Wednesdays, I take them off. I actually go and do something that I enjoy. Maybe it's get out to the forest. Maybe it's actually do one of my hobbies. I'm an avid blacksmith. For anybody who hasn't seen this channel before, that's a large part of what I do as a hobby. I work with metal. And so I choose to take the middle day of the week to either work on projects that I'm developing, which could be business related, but I have the flexibility and the freedom to choose. And that's key. I get to select what I want. And so I've kind of designed this select consultancy, the consultancy that I get to select things in, off the back of, number one, really understanding that I need higher demand for my services than I have availability for them, which means that I need to be good at generating clients. I need to be good at client acquisition. And so that's one of the things we talk about inside the Codex. It's a workshop we ran recently that showed people from stranger all the way to client, what are the steps you need to do to have consistent client flow. Because if you want to be able to select the clients you want to work with, you want to select when you want, if you want to actually create really the terms of engagement, then you need those clients far less than they need you. For them to need you, we're going to talk about number two, which is that you really have to have expertise. And so this is not the sort of business that you can just set up, like you see a lot of coaches in particular, they start a coaching business. I've got a thing that I know how to do. I'm reading 1 page ahead in the manual than the people I'm teaching. No, this is where you need to have some deep expertise. And why do you need to have deep expertise or experience? Because you're able to be incredibly valuable in helping people transition from where they are to where they want to be. Now, you'll have your own area of expertise. I work with a hell of a lot of smart people. They are very good at the work they do. Their doctorates, their masters, they've been in the work they've been doing for 20 plus years. They can get people from here to there, in whatever sense that is. But what I noticed is that often those people, even with those expertise, aren't able to communicate those expertise well. And so a way to communicate your expertise, not just to shop them around and not just to be a service provider, but to really become a mentor and advisor for the clients you're going to work with. When you really have that high value position with the clients, you can choose when you work. You can say, well, I'm going to work this day or I'm going to work that way, or we can organize an appointment for there, but you don't take direction for the client. Now, the only way you can do that is to be a leader within the advisor-client relationship. So you need to be able to lead that, which means that you need to take full responsibility, ownership and accountability of the situation, because they are your choices. It is yours to select. If you select a client, it was your decision. Necessarily select you, they had to consider you and they had to say yes, yeah, but you made the decision, which means you have ultimate responsibility on how the engagement goes. So if you're not getting them the results that you want to get them, if you're not getting the value that you hope to get them, then it's up to you to work on that to improve it. Now, how do you communicate those things? Well, we've created a format called the Expert Framework, which we actually teach inside the Forge Business Program. It sits alongside the Codex, but what I love about it is that it actually creates a diagnostic approach inside the client acquisition system. Having expertise is great. What's even better than that is actually creating a communication framework that allows people to understand your expertise and how those expertise fit into the world that they're experiencing. So how does it remove the symptoms that they're experiencing that they don't want? How does it achieve outcomes that they do want? And so the Expert Framework is something that I think we've mentioned even on this show before, but if you are interested in how do you take your expertise and put it into a framework that's very easy to communicate, that you can use as a diagnostic, you can even use it if you want to actually start creating information products. You can even use it to create programs, processes, and other trainings that you can certainly bring in to be part of your revenue stream. The two keys so far: can you create client flow? More demand from clients than you can facilitate, right? More than you can supply as far as the time that you're going to use. That gives you choices because you're in high demand. Do you have a way of communicating your expertise very well so that when people are raising their hand to work with you, they really understand the value you're going to provide and that you're able to provide it? You work with someone, it's a successful outcome. And the third piece is really about getting time back. There's a really nice system. It's by Mike Michalowicz, and he has put it together called Profit First. Now, Profit First is great. It's just a way of putting money into buckets so that you make sure that you're getting paid at least some level of profit even before you take a wage. Now, that system is brilliant, and off the back of understanding that system, I've developed something called Time Profits. It's quite different than what Mike's done, but in essence, you're able to get time back first to work on the business. So you're not stuck in the business. You're actually creating time outside of that to look at your business. What does it need right now? What are the marketing activities? What are the systems, maybe the team members that you need to add value to you and the ability to grow what you want in the business? And in this case, the thing you want to grow is time, right? Income and time. We're not growing just the business for growth's sake. We're not trying to attract more team members. We're not trying to get an infinite amount of clients. We just need more clients that demand our service rather than what we can supply a result for. Well, not a result for, but actually work with. And the key is to start focusing then on time. So how do I get time back so that I can have a professional lifestyle instead of having a profession and then having a lifestyle as two separate entities? You can actually work from anywhere in the world. You can be out on a beach, in a resort, and then maybe you go back to the room, maybe you don't. Maybe you take a phone call on the beach. Maybe you open up a laptop or a tablet on the beach and actually do the things that you need to do there. You absolutely can, especially when you're in high demand, because people will be flexible to your approach. They'll be willing to work with you because you provide that high value we described in the Expert Framework. So if you have those things, you're able to get time back. Now, the problem that happens with someone who is in high demand and has a high level of value is that often they will become workaholics, right? They won't just have a profession and a lifestyle. They will just have a profession and forget the lifestyle. And so they dedicate all their time to growth, development, client time, making money, all these different things, but they fill the time. The key with Time Profits is not to fill the time. It's to allocate time first to work on the business, but just to enable you to create more space. First off, I suggest, can I find 20 minutes? From that 20 minutes, can I use that 20 minutes to find an additional 20 minutes every week? That gives me 40 minutes. From there, can I build it to 80 minutes? And from there, that means that we've at least got an hour plus 20 minutes that we can work, and we might give that 20 minutes back to ourselves as time profit. Now, what's cool about this is as you start focusing on time, you can start looking at how do I give myself a half day a week? How do I develop that? Is there systems I need to put in place? Is there simple ways to even just increase the value of a client, either by decreasing costs or increasing fees, right? Are there other services that I can provide at a very low, high leverage, but a low time investment? These are all things that we do to give ourselves time back. So you get a half day a week. Suddenly, instead of working 5 days a week or even 7 days a week, I know there's a lot of people I'm speaking to who are still working 7 days. They're pushing to grow the business, but in doing that, they're painting themselves into a corner because they're growing a business that has to work 7 days a week to accomplish what they need. So what we're going to work on, let's say a 5-day week, we get half a day back, 4.5 days. We then use that additional time, ideally, to get ourselves the full day back. Suddenly we're working 4 days a week. Now, I enjoy working 4 days a week. I don't think I'd go to 3 days a week at this point. I really enjoy the work that I do. I enjoy interacting with clients because the other side benefit of having client flow is it's not just about lead flow. It's not just about opportunities coming into the business. It's being able to work consistently with a diverse range of clients that enables you to improve your value and your delivery. So every client that you work with enables you to become better at what you do. And the question then becomes like, well, how much better is better? Well, I challenge you to understand that now in this period of time, we can actually be world class no matter where we are in the world. And so what is world class for you? What does that look like? What is the highest value professional that you know or that you don't know? Maybe you've got to research. But who is that person around the world and how do they get that good? Well, I can tell you it's probably from doing the work. And doing the work, call it practice, but your practice then becomes professional practice. And in fact, the shell of the organization is a practice, which is really where the initial idea of having a practice came from. We're improving with every client that we work with, which means that client flow doesn't just bring us lifeblood into the business through cash. It gives us opportunities to work with a diverse and consistent rate of clients. Now, I say diverse because we want to bring clients in, help them get a result, and allow them to exit. That is a large part of this process, so we get the diversity of clients. Otherwise, we might just bring in 10 to 20 clients, and that might be all we can handle for the amount of time we want to invest. And so we're not learning anything new by just working with those clients. I think the opportunity is to help someone get a result and release them. Help someone get to a result and release them. And part of that is not becoming one of the cogs in the wheels of the thing that enabled them to get what they get. It's enabling the client to be able to get it on their own, which means instead of the consultant who gets their hands dirty and gets involved, you need to really become the consultant who advises, mentors, and guides their client to the outcomes and results. So if you're wanting to become a select consultant, if you're wanting to have more freedom to choose the clients you work with, to choose the amount of time that you put into your business and when you work, to be able to choose where you work from, then you might want to speak to me because we do this sort of work in the Forge Business Program. We help people create select consultancies. But ideally, whether you work with me or you work on your own, I think that the key is to understand that if you can be in higher demand that you can actually supply, if you can actually communicate the effectiveness of your results and be the expert that is able to get those results, if you can do those things, if you can get time back to invest in areas that you want, whether that be, I want to invest in my family, I want to invest in my hobbies, I want to invest in my leisure time, I just want to have a professional lifestyle that I love. That time and focusing on growing time as a profit model is a much more effective process for you to be doing than just focusing on growth of employees or even growth in cash. My name is Russell Pearson. This has been episode number 98 of the Your Consulting Business podcast. Until next time, stay passionate and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.